TADA! And welcome to Josef's Model Railway and Toy Room. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, you don't need to like, follow, subscribe. I just put the videos out there where I can. Have a holly jolly great time doing so. And in today's video, hopefully it's going to be a little bit of a quicker one. We're just going to have a quick chat about building a roadside attraction. We have a road, now we need an attraction. Ta-da! That's what we've been up to under here. So join me today in what we did to create this little bit of magic at the side of what would be a road.
So as I discussed, we've got this little section here, where as we come from the boat ramp, we can head back onto the road, or we could come off in this direction or turn off. And I thought I wanted to have a little roadside attraction. It's not big enough for a fruit stand without it being a little unsafe or what have you. So I've come up with a roadside attraction. Now I had already started constructing it, and then I thought maybe I better stop and make a little bit of a video here, because there might be a few little things you can take away from this in your own application. Of course, the inspiration for this can be seen in this picture here, and this marvelous iron ore wagon can be found in
Iron Knob in South Australia, which is a pretty much disused mining town at the moment. And a few kilometres away was Iron Barren as well, which I was also sure they had one of these on display, which is now really just a ghost town from its heyday. But as a little bit of street footage can show you, while Iron Knob is still a very active community and still has an active payphone, thanks to my brother for alerting me to this. We also do indeed find that Iron Barren is really just a former shell of what it once was, just empty streets that have pretty much now been completely demolished from the lovely gardens the homes all did have. And let me just take a quick minute here to remember Iron Barren. So certainly Iron Duke is still in operation, but some photos here. It was a luscious green place to live. As someone that has grown up in the area in the 80s, it's hard to believe that all of this has now disappeared. But here are some memories to prove that it existed in a thriving mining town. They even had a school, the swimming pool. It was a marvellous place to come and visit. Whyalla, of course, is still there, and Iron Knob is still there too. So a nice little reminder now to know it did exist, because I believe actually if you drive past on the highway now to make the turn off to get out to where it was, it is not signposted anymore as Iron Barren, but can still be found, of course, and you can see from the Google map. Okay, let us carry on.
So less than 50 kilometres away, we head back to Iron Knob, which is where we took our inspiration. And here we are in June 2023. I called my brother saying, if you're next time in Iron Knob, could you get some updated pictures for me? On that particular day, he was there fixing a payphone that was there. And here is the old electric trolley that used to be used out there. But some very real relevant photos now. And I'd like to thank him very much for sharing with us some of the outstanding memorabilia.
So I thought, what a nifty little thing. And maybe this town that we're working on is a little bit of has a bit of mining heritage or something. So that's pretty much where I took my inspiration to do this. I'm not a scratch builder, and I have no intention of doing anything with a 3D printer. So I noticed with a bit of hunting that Bush actually makes a little HO kit that I thought might just be pretty good. Unfortunately, as you can imagine, it is not assembled like in the picture, and we're going to have to do a bit of work. So be it. Look, I've already started the construction, but just to give you a quick heads up, it's not complicated at all. Basically, we take the frame, we clip the wheels on, they don't need to be glued. We do glue the top section onto the wheels, and then we can do our flowers. And the flowers, it's just basically a matter of cutting off our leaves and stems from the sprue, plonking down a little bit of, I just use quick drying PVA, plonking the tip in, and then threading it into what will be the actual flowers that are still on the sprue, and then we'll trim off. So just so you can see that right now, here are the various different colors, and you can see I just took some PVA glue, I put a little plonk down, and then just cut the things off and dip them in, and they're just drying here at the moment. And of course, if we do turn them around, you will see we're just going to take a little cut on either side. And I obviously just took a small paintbrush and dabbed some different colors of paint respectively. I believe if we have the pink ones here, I used a little bit of an orange on those ones. Of course, with the white ones, again, a little bit of a yellow, trying to get a bit of a, and away we go. And of course, our red ones here, and they've got some slightly different vines that come in the box to do your different plants. So I just sort of mixed a few up accordingly. So plants aside, there's different configurations depending on what you're going to do. But I think we'll, as the picture demonstrates, I'm just working on that. Now, if we just come back to that picture briefly, here we've got our wagons. Looks like a little bit of rust happening here. And of course, on the lower side and on the track. Now, that's why I'm shooting the video now, because that's what I tried to achieve. So I took my track, I've snipped it down to the size required. And what I just did was run a little bit of red rust across the top. And the same thing with the base of the wagons. I did just run a little bit of a brown paint over it, and I'm just dusting them over with some red rust. And you can see what I did here with my wagons. You can see as you can see, I try to mimic the same thing by dibbling a little bit of rust down the ends of where those joints are, and of course dusting it across the bottom, but still trying to keep the original black that was there. I've got the grass ready and we'll seat the flowers in. But how exactly did we achieve this look from the black to the sort of rusty brown? Again, we're back over to DCC Concepts weathering kit. And I just took a little dusting of this red rust on the end of a small brush that is provided and just dusted it along till I was happy. Next thing, we're going to need to get it into location. And if we just flick back to the original picture, you can see that what we did, it needs to be sitting on something and then some stones around it. And I think that's a pretty fair thing. So if we just, when we got our war memorial, and we had our little, this was a section I didn't need of the sort of cast stonework, sort of that marble look to it that we don't need. And in this situation, I'm going to flip it upside down. And this bottom section here will be glued. And this top bit will give us a lovely platform to sit our tracks on and weather it. So what I just did was I blopped some PVA glue across the top here and around the sides. And then I just filled up a little bit of, I think this is just a bit of fine ballast or some buff. I took it and just plunged it in there, just like you were making chicken schnitzels and dunking it into the breadcrumbs after whipping through the egg wash. And as a result, once it was done, and here it is dried up, you can see, same thing, it's the bottom bit, we'll sort of sit it on and level it off. And then once again, one of the invaluable things I've been using has got to be this Pico brake dust. So I took some of that, a bit of a brush, dusted it across the top to give me just a little bit of a blend into that lighter stonework for this display. And once that's done, of course, I just take one of the most invaluable adhesives I'm using across the layout, just some sort of a fixative spray. There's all different sorts of this, and it's just an aerosol, a light dusting on. Once you've put it on, and everything will now stay secure with that. So we'll still blend a little bit, but now we have somewhere for our track to sit, and that's going to start looking quite good. The rest of the build process and just building up a little bit of extra rock around it or ballast, we're actually going to do once it's physically in place, and we'll just do it bit for bit gently. But this is kind of the process we're achieving to do it. And I thought I'd better shoot something now, otherwise all I've got is a finished project and I haven't really got much to impart. But just recycling what you have to create the scene you're looking for, I think it's a wonderful thing. Okay, so we've got our flowers in. It's taken us some time to put that together, but they're drying nicely and we've attached the wheels. Let's just come over to our track section we're working on at the moment. I like to just point this out, that this is where it's going to sit. Obviously we'll move this guard barrier. It'll be done and we're sort of going to sit it here. I just wanted to point out this little level. I believe this one came with my washing machine. I find it invaluable because it has almost zero weight on it, gets into tight places, and really useful for applications such as this. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to build this little feature up, get the stones around it. So you can see what I need to do here. I'm going to get more stones in now and get it into place. Okay, we've let the glue dry. Added just a few little bits of greenery around it just to give it that texture. And if we get in nice and close. Okay, we've just let it cure and dry and gave it a quick tickle with the vacuum cleaner. Looking pretty good. I've just added a little bit of greenery around it, nothing too major here. If I can just bring you down, you can see we've still got a bit of a raise in the track there, which is kind of what I'm looking for, a bit of definition. And we can sit those wagons on it. What we're going to do now is we're just going to trim this tall grass here. I know that generally you take some scissors and chop it off, but I think I'm going to try and cut sections at different heights just to give it a bit more realism, so to speak. And here you go, this is starting to look pretty good. Let's get some wagons on there, shall we? So we've constructed a few signs that we need to put up. Now, what is the best way for getting the signs in and keeping them level? It might seem a little bit daunting. Are we blobbing some glue down and putting them on? Are we drilling holes? Well, it's a little combination of both, but there is a little trick if you want to get them looking right. So here's how we're going to do it. As you know, when I made these signposts, what I tended to use was, of course, our good friends at Evergreen Scale Models. We're using this polystyrene rod that you can buy. And would you believe it, it's 1 millimeter. Of course, we just painted a bit of matte grey over it and we've got our post. So to get it into position, that's 1 millimeter. We need a 1 millimeter hole. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did buy some of these micro fine types of drill bits online. You know, a pack of these was, I don't know, a couple of dollars. They're not marked or labeled. I'm not going to go through that at the moment when I know that I've got a kit here that has a whole bunch of them, including 1 millimeter. Let me just say it's worth noting, when I needed a 1 millimeter drill bit and went shopping for one, I could find every other size basically starting at 2 mil, but nothing at 1. And the only kit that had it was this great big kit here that was some $20. And yes, I bought it just to get my 1 millimeter drill bit. But as I've mentioned before, it's not always about the logic of needing the exact bit. When you're trying to find what you need, I've always made a note before saying, match up what you're looking for to the hole in your drill bit set, and you'll know what you need. I mean, obviously, if I was to slide it in here and said it's wiggly, that's really not going to cut it and any bigger. So it is useful sometimes when you've got a part that you can pick up and move, just to do that little extra step. So 1 millimeter drill bit, we've got that, we've got our sign. Let's go and find a lovely home for it. So we've marked a bit of a location of where we're going to sit this sign. I must admit, I would have preferred it to happen before the railway crossing. However, this is just how this scene's actually going to pan out. And if anyone's going to throw the rule book at me, it's probably going to be myself. Now, I've got one of these little pin vise drills here. Now, these aren't too bad for some applications, but I must admit, I've still yet in all my life of playing with different types of power tools, and including the Dremel as well with the flexible extension on it, I've still yet to find an ultra compact micro cordless drill that's not going to spin too fast that would be perfect for this. I have tried a lot of different things and they're making things smaller and smaller, but my standard cordless drill that I like to use still is a bit overkill getting into some of these places. So we want to stick our post in here. This is actually going to be a little bit more interesting than the other signs we're doing because we've got a raised section and a dropped section accordingly. So it's going to be a little more complicated, but the process is going to be exactly the same as you'll see with the other signposts later on in the footage. I've done the same thing. So we're coming along. The first part's easy to drill into because, of course, it's just our road paving system, a little bit of scenery, and then we're hitting down into the plywood. Now, we should be right now to come out. Usually like to give it a quick vacuum here if I can. we're just going to check that's going to work out for us. And it's just that plywood, which is where I must admit just a little bit of power behind us would help us out and get a slightly better result. So we come in with our signpost now and we slide it down into our hole. Now that's going to sit there quite smoothly. So the trick is to make this work, we only want to do one hole at a time, because what we can do is we could just, once we've sat it in, we can make a marking and we can cut the other post off to the appropriate height to make sure everything is nice and level. And to anyone that says this could be a bit over the top, so be it. And we're right. So it's where we want it. Now, in which situation, as I said, this bit's raised up a bit. So let's just imagine this was flat. We would need to just trim a bit off of this particular signpost. And that is exactly how we're going to achieve it once we lay this up. We'll highly likely use just this one leg, and we're probably going to trim these back just probably 0.5 centimetre, even if that, drill one hole, mark it in, and we've pretty much got the position that we require. So what do we do now? We're just going to drop a little bit of glue on here and set it into place. Because we drilled that hole at just the right size, we have quite a snug fit. We have quite a snug fit there, so we don't actually have to glue it, but like anything, we want to get it right. We may come back later and just put a little bit of concrete or something around there just to make it look like it's been secured, probably even just a shrub always on the lower side, nothing too spooky there. And if this next step looks a little bit crazy, then I guess that's what we are. It's quite good to me. Only a slight variation. I should point out, when you're doing the signs, for those purists, you're probably going to take a bit of a marker and go around the edging in a grey or something like that. Some of the signs we have here are actually outlined in white, so it seems just appropriate to leave it like that. Now, you may need to adjust your heights and things accordingly. This is more than happy for what I'm chasing, and that will work quite well for us today. So once again, we take our pin and we put it a bit of a marking to where we'd like that particular signpost to be. 1 millimeter drill bit, and make a quick drill down. So what we'll just do, we'll just take a little bit off the bottoms here. Probably just take a fraction off of this too. Don't think we're going to go quite that deep. My hole's not quite that impressively deep, so we'll just take a little bit off there. Again, we don't need much glue here, so truthfully, a little bit of overspill that can happen before is generally the best way to do it. And as I've certainly discovered with some of the more finer things, decanting a bit out using a toothpick or something like that to get what you need is a good way to go. Slow and steady. It's not really my best pace, I'm afraid to say. Beautiful. Again, if you're a little bit pedantic like me, you may just add some weight on while we get that glue to cure at the moment. Just check everything is looking nice and level. Can't lie with that bubble, can I? Let's just pop. Not too bad. I'm not too worried. The bubble certainly doesn't have to be in the middle. Hit the road sign, and the best of the time someone's hit it, whacked it, or something's happened. We just want to make sure we're roughly looking good, and certainly with the naked eye looking down on that, if I looked at your model railway, I certainly wouldn't say anything about that. I think it's a fantastic job. And that's the process. Now, of course, isn't it typical? I see that dab of glue on the side cutters too. Don't worry, it's just PVA. That's going to peel off accordingly. So we'll just leave that to dry. But as you can see, those signs really do start to give this little section a bit more presentation as to what's going on. Been making this tremendous little sign that's guiding us toward our boat ramp, which is located down the end.
So, ladies and gentlemen, ta-da! Here is our final product. And I think we have done very well based on the inspiration of what I was chasing. We've created our ore wagons, of course. We've just printed up a bit of a digital sign here and then mounted it on timber just to give a little bit of information. I think we might I still haven't decided because space is of the issue. I still want access for vehicles to the left and primarily to the right with their boat trailers to swing around. However, I think we're still going to probably put some feature stones, bollards, or a little bit of fencing just around it at the moment. But and that's mostly just to protect the sign. But at the moment, this is what we have. I'm really happy with how it's come about, and I hope you really have enjoyed what we've come up with in this particular video. Think of it along the lines of just building a small diorama, when sometimes the rest of the layout can seem like a distant memory until it's actually done. It's nice to create little pockets and scenes that are a finished project. And of course, as you keep going, bigger things will unveil as you go along. And as we said, we started with a road, we ended up with a car park, then we ended up with a Christmas tree, a war memorial, and now we've worked our way onto a little roadside attraction and some signs. The whole thing is starting to really take some great shape. I still haven't even run the train around it yet. Let's just hope it does all work. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do us in this roadside attraction video. As always, girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe. Toodles.